We're going to go ahead and get started, and what we're going to be talking about today is virtual networking, in particular about email, LinkedIn, and job fair. I just want to introduce our team in case you don't know who we are. My name is Christina Nguyen. I am the Senior Career Services Advisor, and I will be doing today's presentation. Also on the phone, we have Shannon, who's our Director, Gabby, who is our Associate Director, and Stephen, who's our Coordinator. Okay, so topics that we'll discuss today, we're going to be talking about networking basics, how to network virtually, email etiquette, LinkedIn and search features, and lastly, we're going to be talking about the job fair, tips, layouts, and resources, as well as networking strategy tips and examples. So first, what is networking? And I will tell you, a lot of people have a negative connotation with it because it can be really awkward. You don't know what you're doing, that type of situation. At the end of the day, it is about building relationships with people, and that's just communication. So, be yourself, and just, you have to just learn how to talk about yourself a little bit in your branding. But why do we network? One of the biggest things is that 80% of the job market is hidden. Jobs are posted, and most of the time, the organization already has someone in mind who they want for the position. So that's why we have to kind of do it. And then in addition, recommendations matter. So people would rather hire someone and a candidate they already know or who was recommended by them, because it's a lot lower of a risk comparatively to any other, if you had a candidate who you did not know about, or it's less of a risk for them to take. So virtual networking, like I said, we're going to be talking about email, which is asking someone for an informational interview. This can be a video call or during a phone call. LinkedIn, we're going to talk about kind of not just some polishing up your LinkedIn, but how to reach out to alumni in your industry of interest. And then finally, we're going to be talking about the job fair. Really, I highly recommend researching our over 20 companies that will be there next week, and you'll be able to reserve time slots with them, either on one-on-one or group sessions. So first, email. There is an email etiquette of things that you should do. One is that you want to make sure that you're having a clear subject line. So include the purpose of your email. So for example, it could be like candidate for a financial analyst position. For your salutation, you always want to verify who you're going to be sending and writing this to. So dear Mr., Miss, or Doctor, last name, always do that unless you usually recommend that and because not everyone's on a personal basis with first name. With Miss, I always recommend doing MS as opposed to MRS or MISS, even if you know if they're married or not. It's just the polite way of doing it. And then if they're a doctor, make sure to denote that with DR. It's a concise message as well, so making sure that you have a greeting, a purpose of context, a specific request, and make sure to always end it with like a thank you for your time and consideration. For the signature, you just want to change the signature. You can change your signature in your email settings to include your full name as well as contact information. So it could be something like Christina Nguyen with your phone number on it. Or it could be, some students like to put what major they are, what school they're with, those types of things. You can definitely add that in your signatures in your email settings. And then finally, it's just to make sure to really spell check and proofread. And by that, I mean, always double check it with your content before sending. There's always a couple of little things that get missed sometimes. Best one I would recommend is using Grammarly. It's free. You can use it and add it to your extension into your Gmail. And with that, you're able to check at least like spell check and basic grammar, which is really helpful.
I just want to chime in really quick on email etiquette. If you think about one of the reasons that we're bringing this up and talking about it is a lot of the times that you're going to have an opportunity to meet someone or network with someone is they'll say, send me an email, or someone will connect you via email to someone else. And so you have to make sure that your email etiquette is on point, because that's most likely going to be the very first impression that they have of you is an email that you sent them. And so you have to make sure that you reread it 3 or 4 times. And I find myself doing this a lot where I thought I had typed one thing, and when I go back and reread, I had misspelled or I forgot something. And even with a Grammarly or a spell check, it's worth rereading a couple of different times. And, there's just so much virtual networking going on that we have to have our email game on point.
So we have a couple of examples for you guys on how to send an email to a recruiter. So first of all, remind them of when and where that you met them, state the purpose of your email, give them a call to action, and then thank them for their time. So over here on the right, this one is a clear subject line. So summer 2021 internship. Hello, Miss O'Neill. My name is Christina Nguyen, and I met you at the University of Dallas Job Fair last Thursday. When we spoke, you mentioned that you would have summer internships posted soon and that I should email you my resume. I'm still interested in the marketing internship that you mentioned, and I'm sending you my resume for your consideration. You can give me a call at this number. Thank you, Christina Nguyen. So it follows all the bullet points of what we said. You know exactly what this person's asking for, and really quickly, the person knows what they need. So if you're sending an email to an alum of UD, you're using all the same steps. It might be a little bit more personal just because you have shared experiences. So over here on the right says meet for coffee. Hi, Ms. Blatt. My name is Christina Nguyen, and I met you at the Champagne Breakfast at Groundhog a couple weeks ago. When we spoke, you suggested we meet for coffee so we can chat about your career path as an English grad and how you ended up at Fidelity Investments. My schedule is flexible and I can meet Monday through Thursday in the evenings. Please let me know what days and times work best for you. Thank you, Christina. Again, this is a little bit more personal because you met them at an event. It's something shared like Groundhog, especially at UD. You have a similar major and you're asking them exactly what you're looking for. You also gave a little bit of a call to action in the sense of, you know, you gave them dates and times. That's the hardest part about connecting with some of our recruiters and alumni is that going back and forth with them, trying to get that contact information and get a date set can be really difficult.
And you'll notice one thing on this one, when we're talking about meeting with an alumni, or maybe it's a potential mentor or someone that you think could help you in your industry, that it's not a recruiter and not someone specifically tied to a specific job, you'll notice that nowhere in here does it say, I've attached my resume for you to refer me for a job at Fidelity. It's basically asking for further information or advice or something like that. Because when you're just reaching out to someone, especially as a cold email or a cold call, then you know, asking for something at the outset is not the way to build a relationship. The way to build a relationship is to try to encourage a first meeting. And then if you are able to build rapport with this person and get some mentoring from them, then asking them to refer you to a job for a job is a different story. But in the initial kind of reach out, then what you're asking for is time to visit, and then work on building a relationship from there.
Great. All right, so we're moving right along into LinkedIn. I hope that everyone has a LinkedIn, and if you don't, that's okay. We can definitely talk about that and build up to that. There's a couple of things why networking on LinkedIn is so important, but a couple of steps to get there is one, complete your profile. You just want to make sure that all of your digital footprint is ready to go. So if anyone can look at your profile, they can see what your career goals are and those things like that, your skill set, your experiences really quickly at a quick glance, which is really helpful. And I put here, state your career goals in your headline, and we'll go into an example in that in the next slide. And the next one is search. And what I mean by search is you can search for people. It could be UD alumni, it could be recruiters, it could just be any contacts. You can search for them by industry, job title, location, or school, which really helps if you're looking for someone who's from your alma mater. Next is messaging. Don't be shy about reaching out to them. LinkedIn messaging is exactly like you would like an email or anything like that. It's just in a different platform. And since LinkedIn is used for professional networking, most people are used to getting these messages. And then finally, it's just a follow up. If you haven't heard back from them, send them another message or email with another call to action, or just saying, hi, just wanted to check in, see if you had an update on things, something like that.
And you need to watch out for timing on that, because we've heard from recruiters, you know, you need to give a couple of weeks. If you've reached out to someone on LinkedIn and you haven't heard anything, don't email them 2 or 3 days later asking, you know, can you please respond or something like that. Give them a couple of weeks. And the same thing goes for email. The same thing goes when you're applying for positions. You know, what I've found is reaching out the second time usually will make them respond. But if you do it too quick, then you set the wrong impression that you're being too aggressive or that you're being pushy. So do give it a couple of weeks if you don't hear from someone.
Right, that's a great point. Like I said, we're not going to go fully in depth with the LinkedIn profile, but I did want to mention kind of the headline. So I just gave you an example over here on the right with my LinkedIn profile. So what I wrote is Senior Career Advisor, Event Planner, and Data Analyst. Those are just kind of roles and duties that I do for myself. The reason that the headline is so important is because the same way that you can search for other people, recruiters can search for you. So they're going into the search in LinkedIn and finding people with keywords and terminology for positions that they have opened. And so a couple of examples I have here are instead of using something like English major at UD, you want to be a little bit more descriptive. So you could say something like marketing student seeking a social media internship, English student aspiring to be a leader in publishing, seeking summer 2021 internship for cybersecurity. And then you can put a little vertical line with grad student at UD. Those are a couple of different ways to kind of just give you a little bit more of a descriptive headline that will be searchable in key terms and terminology when they're searching, but you're still saying exactly who you are, just giving a little bit more of a specific example for them.
I want to chime in just for a second. This is advice that we got directly from recruiters. I was on a call with a recruiter from Fidelity, and she went into a ton of detail about how she uses LinkedIn Recruiter, which is a special platform for recruiters to search for students. And so the way that she does it is by searching for these things for people looking for jobs as an analyst or in cybersecurity or things like that. And she'll get a list of students that match the search criteria that she's put down. So if you just have student at University of Dallas, then that is absolutely no description whatsoever about what you're bringing to the table. But if you're saying you're seeking a job as a financial analyst and that's what she searches, then you'll end up being on the list. And so this is an area where putting a little bit of extra time can have a big payoff.
Okay, so if you want to learn more about kind of building your profile on LinkedIn and creating it and everything, we will be posting a video tomorrow on our YouTube channel that will have a breakdown of each section of LinkedIn and kind of tips for success. But we're just going to keep continuing on how to specifically network on LinkedIn. And I get this question a lot of how to search for contacts. So I thought I would give a good overview with photos. So the first step is to go to the search bar. You can choose the different options. So you can choose to search by people, by jobs, by school or company. I usually search by people first. And then after that, there's a choose your filter section or click all filters. And then from there, you can determine down further. So if you want them to be not a first connection with you, a second or third, because they're not connected with you already. If you're looking for someone from University of Dallas, then specifically go to the schools and type it in and click that as your indicator. There's so much other functionalities as well. You can search people by location. So if you're only looking for people who are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you can also look for people by certain companies as well as industry. So if you are just interested in finance or investments in general, that's an industry that you can pick. And then once you do that, you'll be able to get a search list. So I was super specific. I actually chose only people who were my first connections that worked at UD, who also went to UD, who worked in Dallas and had the career in their title. So obviously those are very, very specific. And these are so Gabby and Shannon are my only two searches that came up from that very detailed search. But you can do very similar things. So if you wanted to pick someone who only had HR in their title or only had finance in their title, those searches would come up very specific. If you only can come up with no searches or two people, you can expand your searches by deleting things within those parameters. After that, so obviously I'm already connected with Gabby and Shannon, so I'll get the message button, but if you're not connected with them, it'll have a connect or request to connect with them. If you have never met them before and things like that, you can add a note very similar to saying, hi, Miss Blatt, you were an English major, just wanted to connect with you, something like that, just to kind of make a little bit more of an introduction as opposed to just a cold invitation.
I want to mention one thing really quick here. If Christina had chosen not first connections, like she mentioned before, then it would have also listed connections that we had in common. And that's a great place to start too. If you see, if let's just say, for instance, that that we were talking about Brett Landry, and Christina's trying to figure out how to get connected to him, and she does a search and she sees that Gabby is connected to Brett Landry, then you might ask Gabby to make an introduction for you, or something like that. So that's definitely look at someone else's connections and see if you recognize any names or see another way that you could get an introduction there. And yeah, that's a great way to have someone introduce you is a lot smoother way than just reaching out to someone cold. But if you can't, you absolutely go ahead and try to connect with them. What are they going to say? Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I would say too is that most people have the same rule of thumb. So if someone's requesting me, if they went to the University of Dallas or they went to my high school, I usually connect with them. If I met them at an event, I connect with them too. Those are really my hard, fast rules. Just because my network is so big that I try not to connect with people I don't know, because then they have access to my network again. So if you as a student at UD, if you connect with any of us, you get also access to all of our networks. So that's usually a really good first step.
Just as a reminder, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll be monitoring that, and we'll definitely answer any questions that come in. So.
Okay, so now that you've connected with someone on LinkedIn, now you can message them. So maybe you connected with a recruiter that you met through an event on campus. You're going to do the same exact thing on email. It's just now you might just do it on LinkedIn. There are a couple of reasons for this. One, if you just connected with them, it's kind of fresh on their mind that they accepted you. Secondly, if you don't have an email address for them, you can message them on LinkedIn. And I will tell you that recruiters will keep their emails sometimes typed to the best, just because they get so many contacts and connections. So if you don't have an email, message them on LinkedIn. So on this example over here on the right, we just have hello, Marianne. It was great speaking with you at the video interview workshop you hosted at the University of Dallas last week. I decided to apply for the fall 2020 analytics internship you recommended based on my background in data analytics. I attached my resume for review as you requested. Thank you again for your time. Sincerely, Gabby. So it's very similar to an email. You have a greeting, a purpose, a skill set, background, summary. You can attach a resume. It's optional here. Usually you don't necessarily do it unless they asked for it, but she did ask for it at the event. So attach it and then give a call to action again.
And these messages do need to be a little bit shorter than what you would kind of put in a regular email, because as you guys know, if you've been LinkedIn messaged directly, it's just hard to read a really long message in the format they put them in. So these should be really concise.
Mm-hmm. So say you're messaging, again, an alum of the university, it's going to be the same thing. So the example over here we have on the right. Hello, Shannon. I am a junior English major at UD, and I see that you graduated from UD with a degree in English. I was hoping that you'd be open to talking briefly over the phone or meeting for a cup of coffee to discuss your professional path after UD. I'm interested in learning more about social media marketing, and any insight you could give about your career path in marketing for Facebook would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time, Gabby O'Neill.
Haha, Facebook. Sorry, I just have to say that. This is exactly the way that you make connections, and it feels a little weird and a little awkward sometimes. Just to reach out to someone blankly and ask them for a cup of coffee, because you may be thinking to yourself, why would they want to take the time to talk? But here's the kicker in this thing. It says, I was hoping you'd be open to talking about your professional path. And so people love to talk about themselves. That is one of the number one things to know about networking, is that if you will ask someone questions about themselves and ask them for advice on their career path, they're a lot more likely to say, sure, I'd be happy to tell you all about myself, than if you were to say, I was wondering if you could help me figure out how I could get a job, or I was wondering if you could help me apply to Fidelity or something like that. People love to talk about themselves, so just offering them a chance to have a quick meeting to give advice, and then it'll probably turn into a lot more than a quick meeting. So this is definitely the way to go to build relationships with people that can help you out and act as mentors.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so next we're going to be talking about the job fair. So the job fair, obviously it's a little different this year because we're going to be doing it virtually, but some overview of typical things that you would talk about anyways in a virtual setting, whether in person or not. First, research the company. So research the company of interest. Don't discount those that aren't in your field. I'll tell you, if you're looking for like a business role, every company is always looking for like a person in marketing or an HR rep or a business analyst, just because that's not directly their field, but they always have those positions usually open. Next is you want to make sure you have an elevator pitch ready. And I know that's a little weird to call it an elevator pitch, but it's not. I would say that what you always heard was it's 30 seconds long. You have 30 seconds to a minute to talk about yourself and sell yourself. I will tell you that's a long time to talk about yourself. We really recommend something like 10 to 15 seconds, really short, concise, sweet, and to the point, and usually end it with a question as opposed to kind of leaving it open-ended. Next is to ask questions. So ask about things that can't be found on the company website, such as, what do you like about working for ABC company? Keeping those questions open keeps the conversation going. Also, it shows a recruiter that you're more interested and more engaged in the conversation with them. And then finally, so smile. So maintaining that eye contact and everything like that, this communicates that you're really engaged and you're interested. It's a little bit different when you're doing it in video. And I will tell you that most people won't look directly at camera because they want to be able to look at someone's face, and that's okay. What I would say is try the best you can to talk to camera when you are answering a question. But if you kind of mess up and don't do it, it'll be okay. I promise.
What I want to mention here, there's been a lot of talk about how Zoom is impersonal and we're losing the personal touch and things like that. But I'm going to tell you, I haven't seen Gabby, Christina, or Steven in 6 months, okay? But I don't feel like I haven't seen them in person in 6 months because we are talking every day. So maybe that's just me, but the point I want to bring up is some of those same nonverbal cues that you notice when you're meeting with someone in person are extremely important in a situation like a virtual job fair or like a virtual interview. You need to smile and you need to lean forward and act engaged. And I don't know if you guys can't see my hands, but I always talk with my hands, and I'm still doing that because it makes me feel more engaged with the conversation. I was on a call pretty recently with the CEO of I make that sound like that was something special. It was a webinar with the CEO of ZipRecruiter. And he was literally saying the same thing, that you need to be on the edge of your seat and be engaged. And the thing about a virtual situation is you really actually have more control over the situation than you would in an in-person situation. Because in our in-person job fair, there's a million people around. There's people that are trying to cut to get in front of you because they want to talk to this recruiter. There's just so much going on. But in the way that the Handshake job fair is going to be set up, in some situations you'll have opportunities to speak individually to employers, and you need to treat that just as if you were looking at them face to face, and smile and make eye contact. And the way you make eye contact is by looking directly in the camera and by really coming across as engaged and excited to be there.
So we're going to practice an elevator pitch. So I will tell you that this one is an example of one that we're going to build off of. So I'm a junior English major at a small Catholic liberal arts university where we read the great books, and I studied abroad in Rome for a semester. I'm interested in the publishing industry and hope to do marketing or editing. I haven't really decided yet. I've completed 2 internships last summer. I volunteered for Reading Partners, where I helped a second grader catch up on his reading skills. This semester, I'm interning at the World Affairs Council. Did I lose you guys yet? Where I manage all social media accounts, including LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and so far have increased their followers by 10%. That's a mouthful. And I'm so sure I lost you probably after study abroad in Rome, after the second line. So I have to say is that it's a really long kind of bio. Also, you don't really know what the student is looking for because they said they haven't decided yet about between the two. I would say when you're talking to someone, you want to say exactly what you're interested in, or at least having an indication. And then you don't want to tell them I haven't decided yet. In addition, you probably want to put just one example as opposed to 2. These are 2 different examples. I would just choose one and stick with it. So a shortened version we have here is, hi, I'm Jessica. I'm a junior English major. I'm interested in editing and publishing. I currently interning at the World Affairs Council, where I do social media for all of their events. I saw that your company is looking for a marketing intern. Can you tell me a little bit about what kinds of projects your past interns have completed? So again, this is a little bit shorter. It's concise to the point. You're saying what you're interested in, where you're currently working, what your current skill set is, and then you're leaving it open to a question so that they can have an opportunity to reply back to you. And that's really what you want to start off with as a tell me about yourself, or things like that when you're introducing yourself when you're meeting with these employers.
I think another place that you can use something kind of like this is, let's suppose that you had an opportunity to meet with a company, or you chose to set up a one-on-one with one of the companies at the job fair, and you got to the one-on-one and you found that they were recruiting for a position that you're either not qualified for or that you're not interested in. Maybe you misunderstood what they were recruiting for. So let's just say they were recruiting for HR and you were looking for a cybersecurity internship. Or vice versa. The way that you can handle that is say, well, I'm actually in the cybersecurity program at UD. Can you tell me a little bit about, what you know about how your company handles, their risk assessment area? Is there someone that you could recommend that I speak with, or, something like that? You can kind of transition by asking questions into, kind of getting the information you need. And that's really one of the areas that I think that that students in particular get a little nervous about, is they feel like they've got to sell themselves from they've got 10 seconds with this recruiter and they have to jump in and completely sell themselves in the little bit of time they have. But when you kind of just regurgitate all this profile about yourself, then you're not learning anything about the company and you're not engaging that recruiter. So by asking a question, you've required them to kind of come back and engage with you, and you can continue a conversation. So let's just suppose that that Christina had used this elevator pitch. Can you tell me about the kinds of projects? And the recruiter said, well, actually our interns usually handle digital media and do SEO and things like that. Then that's a chance for me to say, or for Christina to say, oh, okay, that's really interesting. That sounds like interesting projects, because it's very similar to what I've done in the past. So by you getting that information, you've given yourself the opportunity to carry on the conversation and to really pitch yourself without it coming across as this sort of pushy presentation, that you've asked a question and you've internalized what they've said and actually come back full circle to why you would be someone for them to talk to.
Right. And then, I forget to mention this, but, I get that job fairs can be really awkward. And I know that it's a very stressful situation. You're a one-on-one with a recruiter and you don't know what to say. You don't know how to get started. And so that's why we gave the example of the elevator pitch, is to have somewhere for you to start from. You don't have to use this verbatim at all. It's better if it comes naturally to you, because that's more organic. The last thing you want is to not sound like yourself when you're having a conversation. You want to sound like you're talking with your best friend. You're just having a casual day, like, hey, tell me a little bit about what you've been doing today, or, what did you do in the past? Those types of things just come organically. And that's probably the best conversations you can have at a job fair at all, period.
And I do want to note, there's a lot of questions about what are job fairs going to look like in the future. And, the jury's still out on that, but I can tell you for at least the foreseeable future this semester, and I would imagine next semester, and of course there's a possibility it could go into next fall, there are going to be more and more online job fairs. And the good news about that is that that there will be opportunities for you to attend job fairs and presentations from big companies, where in the past, some employers have only gone to certain schools to recruit, but now they're having, and one example is Goldman Sachs. We invited them to our job fair and they said, we're taking an agnostic approach to universities this year, and we're not doing any specific recruiting events. So they're doing everything where it's all comers, to their events. So you'll have opportunities like this. And so polish up your skills in this area and you'll be able to shine.
Right. So speaking of that, I want to get really specific into the virtual job fair this year on Handshake. So as you know, Handshake is our platform for all things career services, and that's what the platform we're going to be using. They have set it up exactly like a Zoom call. So here's a little example. You can, for your testing technology, it has my name, it has the photo of the video, how it would appear. You're gonna have a chat on the right, so you can always chat messages if the video goes out or anything. You are gonna be able to share screen as well. So if you wanted to share your resume with them, if you didn't put on your profile already, those types of things. They also have a feature there at the top. You'll see it has a little hand raise. You can raise your hand in case you have a question. That's very helpful if you're in a group setting, so that they can point you out to make sure that your question gets asked. So you can actually test this out, and I'll have that in a little bit of a couple different slides, but I did want to show you what it looks like and how you're going to be communicating with these employers as they come in.
Christina, are you going to talk about the group sessions and the one-on-ones?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Because there's really two different ways. Yeah, there you go.
Right. So the way that the Handshake, the way that Handshake has basically created the job fair is that you have to reserve time slots with them. They surveyed both students and employers, and it was better use of both people's time in order to make sure that you have a reserved slot with them. So you're going to be able to do one-on-one sessions with employers. Those are about 10 minutes with our company reps. And then there's also opportunities for group sessions. They're more similar, I would say, to like an info session you would usually typically get, but they might be a little bit more specific or tailored, but they could go up to 50 students and they're gonna be about 30 minutes. So it's gonna be great because it's probably, they might share a little bit about their company, but they're probably gonna have it open for Q&A. And that's gonna be your opportunity to kind of connect with the recruiter, especially if they didn't have any one-on-one sessions. So with the sessions, I will tell you, it was determined by the employer on what their needs were. So some employers chose all group sessions, some employers chose a combination of both, and some employers only chose one-on-one. So in the next slide or the next two slides, I'll show you a video of how to access that information and how to look at what kind of different slots that they have available. Okay, so with that, please enjoy this short 15-second video. So pretty much with that, it's a step-by-step of looking at all the different employers and then being able to look at all the sessions that they had and then reserving your slot. And then at the very right, when it says your sessions, those are the ones that you've already reserved. And then the day of, you'll get a link with them in order to connect with that employer and everything like that. We are going to be, I would say the biggest thing for this is that you want to test your technology prior. To make sure that everything's working in your connection. And then we will also be, we will be available day of in case anything comes up, but Handshake also has, they have tech support for day of in order to resolve any issues. I will tell you that depending on what their needs are or anything like that, it may take 30 minutes. So that's why we're saying test your technology first so that you don't have a long queue of waiting a long time to fix your issue or problem.
And you can register for multiple individual times with different employers. You know, there's not like a limit, like you can only see 10 employers. You can register for as many as you have time for. You can register for as many of the info sessions as you have time for. And this is really all up to what you're able to do.
Mm-hmm. So with that, I have this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Gabby.
Sorry, I was just going to chime in really quickly. We just ask that you only register for employers that you have time for. So don't no-show an employer. So if you register for something and you find that you may not be able to make it, just delete your registration because we don't want to take that time slot away from someone else who could go. That's all.
No, that's a great point to make. That just we want to make sure that we're both using time wisely and not and making sure that if there's a student available to take that slot, that they have the chance to.
And
So
again,
with
just as a
that,
reminder, really quick, you guys can chat any questions. We had to mute everybody because we had an issue with a Zoom bomb when we started this previously. So if you have a question about this process or anything like that, you can either ask it in the chat or pop us an email. We really want everybody to be familiar with the process and feel comfortable with it so that you'll sign up to visit with employers.
Mm-hmm. And then at the very end of the video, you probably saw it when you're doing a session, some employers have put qualifications of what they're looking for. So if they're looking for graduate students, if they're looking for recent alumni, recent graduates, sophomore, juniors, freshmen, things like that. So it's a really good idea to update your Handshake profile to make sure that you fit any of those criteria if those come up. And so this will help employers get to know you a little bit more, and they'll be able to look at, this is very similar to like a LinkedIn profile. It's just that because we're using Handshake as our career fair provider, it's a good chance for them to see it as well. Second of that is to register early and sign up for sessions. Like we've said, you just have to register beforehand because that's the only way you'll be able to get the link. You won't be able to get it retroactively. Third is to learn about employers that you'll meet. So think about questions to ask them. Have your elevator pitch ready, your resume ready to share with them as well on your computer or on your phone. And then just make sure that you have questions. Some of them have put if you go to the employer list, you'll be able to see about us. So you'll learn a little bit more about the company. You'll look at positions they might have in majors they're looking for, things like that. Some of them are just doing open recruiting. So this is just kind of an a rolling basis, but learning a little bit more about the industry or that company is probably really helpful. Next is a little bit before the job fair, I would find a quiet place to sit with limited distractions. We get that you might be a college student who lives in a dorm room, and that's okay. Like, don't worry about your background. What I would say is just make sure that you either have like a headset or that you can be heard very clearly so that they can understand what you're saying. And then just having a place that's well lit would probably be my recommendation. I would not recommend sitting behind or in front of a window, as in the windows behind you. The shadows look weird, but that's your only option. That's okay. Just go with it. And our recruiters will be flexible too, I promise you. And then the day of for the job fair, you just want to make sure you're having a good first impression. So making sure you show up on time like you would for a normal job fair or an interview, dress professionally. It's okay if you're business casual. Also remember, you're only really from the waist up. So, wear what you think is comfortable. I will tell you that when I am in like a webinar or like performing or anything like that, I like to be fully dressed. That just gives me a little bit more confidence, but do whatever you feel is best for yourself. And then finally is to follow up. So making sure that you send a thank you to any of our company reps that you've met. You should view and apply for open jobs or internships that they've mentioned, either in the sessions or maybe on the website or on their company profile. I will tell you that a lot of students, sometimes what they'll do is they'll go to the job fair, they've met with them, and then they kind of forget about the thank you, or they forget, oh, I should apply for that internship that they talked about. So doing that actually puts you ahead of the game a little bit. So you just want to make sure to do those things.
And I would imagine that, we can help you with finding email addresses after the fact for the people that you meet if you don't get them. But I just can't imagine that these recruiters in the group sessions and the one-on-one won't be sharing their information. I just feel certain that they'll be sharing their contact information. So remember, they're coming to this job fair because they want to recruit people for jobs and internships. And so that's why they're here. So they'll be more than happy to share their contact information with you, and you'll get a chance to follow up and use one of the email templates that we mentioned. And that'll do it.
Okay, so follow-up questions. For at the job fair, questions about recent trends or news, what projects the current intern or employees are working on. We've talked about that. You can ask them like, what's a typical day or week look like for an intern, or maybe like a full-time hire, what's the first week look like? Those are really good questions. It gives a little bit more context in that you're interested, not only in the company, but the position. If there is not a position listed, maybe think about, what really calls to you about their culture or the company. Like, do they have a program for volunteering? And you've been a very big volunteer in the past. Like, is that why you resonate with them? Questions like these are kind of come back to the whole, like, why do you want to work here? Or why should we hire you type of situation that kind of where it rolls back into. For virtual chat, so maybe if you're doing like a coffee chat maybe like online, or maybe if you're just like emailing someone, something like that. It's like, how did you land in your current position, or what do you like best about your job or industry? And then for alumni, the two easiest questions I can tell you is, how do you think your UD education helped you get X job? So your marketing job, your finance job, your lawyer job, et cetera. And then which class do you think was most helpful for your career? Giving an opportunity to kind of talk about the education and themselves is a really good way to kind of open it for conversation to make it really flowing. Because I can tell you the easiest way to start a conversation and keep having a networking going is asking questions about them and giving them a chance to talk about themselves. Okay, so strategies to combat nerves. First of all, it's just practice and practice again and again. Either rehearse your pitch and greeting out loud to your friends or family, or for yourself or something like that. You can practice over video. You can even record yourself if you're so inclined. Those are good ways to kind of just hear back kind of what you're saying and making sure that you're short, concise, and to the point. Next, it's the test technology. So after you register for the job fair, you can actually test your Handshake video on the page. So I put it right here at the bottom. When you click on the job fair after you've registered, they'll have a button that says test Handshake video, and it actually brings up that video that I showed you in a couple of slides ago. It'll have your chat, making sure that works, your video, your share screen, all of those things to make sure that it works. Next is to take a break. So like we said, you can build your own time schedule with all the different time slots. I would recommend making sure that you actually put breaks in for yourself. So at the job fair, you're just talking, and then usually just can walk away, get a drink of water. Because you're building out your own schedule with time slots, you can actually build some breakout time for yourself. Just like an in-person job fair is very taxing on people, I think a virtual one is just as taxing. You kind of have to do a couple of extra things to make sure that you look okay virtually on video and things like that, that put a little bit more stress. So taking a break to like leave the room for a while, get a drink of water, those type of things will be really helpful. And then finally is to breathe. Like I said, everyone's nervous, like even the recruiters on the other side. This might be their first time that they've ever done virtual recruiting before. This is definitely their first time that they're doing a Handshake job fair. So those types of things, everyone's going to be kind of on a learning curve in order to make sure that everything's okay. So just breathe, relax, it's going to be okay. And just roll with the punches, because I'm telling you, there are probably going to be a couple of hiccups.
And remember, like I said a few minutes ago, they are there to recruit people. So they will be nice. They will be personable. They want to talk to you and want to get to know you. So hopefully that helps if you're feeling any nerves.
Okay, so with that, just let us know if you have any questions. That's really kind of the bulk of what we would say for virtual networking. Again, it's just about building connections with people. It's just in a different format. So instead of doing it in person, having a cup of coffee, maybe at the cat bar, you're doing it on a phone call or a video call. You're doing it on LinkedIn, you're doing it on a Handshake. You're just using different avenues in order to get the same results.
And again, like we said, this is going to be a trend for the foreseeable future that everybody's got to get used to. And another thing that why you want to really pay attention to your Zoom or virtual presence is because a lot of jobs are still going to be remote for a while. And if you are uncomfortable or not, if you're not following kind of typical Zoom protocols, like if you have your laptop down and you're looking directly down into it instead of raising it up on books or things like that, if you're not following sort of the typical good habits for Zoom, then that person may not or may wonder if you would have the capability to work on a remote team, or to be able to use the communication strategies that we're all having to use right now to be able to interact in a virtual setting. So it's a good test for them.
The questions about Handshake or signing up for the fair, we actually sent out emails to everybody yesterday. So you're always more than welcome to go ahead and reply back to that email, and it'll get to the right advisor in order to address your question. And I know this is going to be different. And I just ask for your patience with Handshake, especially as this is our first time using it. And we're hoping that it's really smooth and easy. And we got you know, it's like Shannon said, these companies still wanted to recruit at UD specifically, and they wanted to make sure that they could still reach students. They still have positions open, both full-time, part-time, internships, volunteer, all of those. Those have not ended, and we'll continue to find opportunities for you guys.
Okay, you guys let us know if there's if you have any questions, and we will be reminding you guys to register. So like Christina said, check out your email, but we'll be sending you more emails because we want to make sure that we show the employers that as many students as possible are interested in their positions so that they'll keep coming back.